And good afternoon. It is time for our Friday Lunch and Learn. And today I want to talk to you about mindset. I want to talk to you about a problem that some of us may have about overthinking, right? You can be too much of a thinker and you can spoil the joy of the moment by overthinking. And so I tend to do this. Part of that is I tend to, by nature, be a control freak. I've had to work very, very hard on letting things go that I do not have control over, but I want everything to be right. I want my decisions to be right, all these kind of things. And so because of that, I have a tendency to overthink things. And there are other people in my family that do as well. And you may as well. And so we're going to be talking about the pitfalls of being an overthinker, what it does to destroy our peace, and how we can maybe get out of that. And so if you are someone who is driven to perfection, you're a perfectionist, I raise my hand on that. I'm working very hard to get out of that because only one person was perfect, and that is not me, and that is not you. And so when we try and be perfect, we are really setting ourselves up for failure. And so that's not something that any one of us want to do. So we're taught when we're very, very young that if we look at all the options, if we look at all of the what are the ramifications of each thing, you draw your T-chart, you put your pros and your cons, and then you just really analyze and you come up with the best decision. We're taught that that is the best way to go. However, that may not be the best way to go. Now, I'm not saying throw away all of your thinking skills. I'm not saying throw away all of your logic. What I am saying is that we have to balance logic and intuition. And so you may be happier, you may be calmer if you stop with the hyper rationality, all right? I have to be in my logical side of the brain all the time, all right? People are like that. When we lean into our intuition, when we lean into our gut feeling, then we may have a better chance of having happiness. Now, I know as a younger person, I was very much more gut oriented. Somebody would say, I think we should do this, and my gut would say yes or no, and I would just go with it like that. My late husband was very, very, there's a word, pragmatic, very pragmatic. He would think and think and think and think and think, and I used to go, oh my God, just make a decision already. He wasn't like that, and I think some of that rubbed off on me because as I became older, the more I lived with him, the less that I relied on my gut, the more I relied on knowledge and that kind of thing. So maybe relying on your gut reaction might be a better thing. So we're going to talk about pros and cons on that. In our modern age, we have access to information just like that. You go to your computer, you do your DuckDuckGo or your Google or whatever search engine you have, and you have the world's knowledge at your fingertips. And you can get overwhelmed. I can get overwhelmed with the things that we read. Now, of course, hopefully we're smart enough that we're not just going to take anything that's on the internet as face value because it's on the internet, right? There's a lot of false information out there, and I'm not talking about fact checkers and that kind of thing. I'm talking about there's absolutely people that are out to deceive and that kind of thing. There are those people out there. There are people that do character assassination and that kind of thing. There are those people out there. But if you're looking at URL addresses .org or .edu, you probably are going to get some things that are pretty unbiased and they're just information. So we need to look at that and we need to weigh up the choices and see where we are. We do not want to think of ourselves as computers because we are not computers. Yes, we have a fabulous brain. We have a fabulous mind, and it has been likened to a supercomputer, and I do agree with that. But also, we have life experiences. We have intuition. We have the prickles on the back of the neck when someone walks into the room. That's our body telling us that that person is not a safe person. We've got people that walk into our pathway and we have an instant affinity for. That is a vibrational frequency that you are locked into, and that person is probably going to be a good person for you to hang out with. Now, Are either of those two things, the prickles on the back of the neck or the instant affinity, are either of those two things logical? No, they're not logical. What are they? They are physical manifestations of vibrational energy. We all have vibrational energy, and so we don't want to discount that. We don't want to say, oh, I've got this ugly feeling in the back of my neck, but because I'm a Christian, I need to be open and I need to be non-judgmental and all those kind of things. What you're doing then is you're discounting what your body is telling you, and you're going to get into a situation that is not a very safe one. So we don't want you to do that, all right? So the problem with overthinkers is that it is usually a lifetime of overthinking that got you where you were. So I am an overthinker. I'm trying very hard to change and not be such of an overthinker because it puts you in a fear situation. What if I make the wrong decision? What if I don't have all the information? What if I advise somebody incorrectly? What if? You can't live your life on what if and be happy. You just can't. Sometimes people can be overwhelmed with having too much information and they're not able to make a decision based on that information. We spend way too much time analyzing and overanalyzing, and we get stuck in our stuff and we're not able to move on. And so when we sit there and ruminate on our thoughts, and ruminate is a bovine word, all right? So a cow will get the grass and they will eat it and chew it, and it goes into the first stomach. They cough it up, and then it goes into the second stomach. Then they cough it up, and it goes into the third stomach, so on and so forth. So when we're doing that in our mental gymnastics, it is very, very tiring. So we don't want to do that. In an article that was published last year in the Journal of Clinical Psychiatry, they have linked overthinking with psychiatric disorders. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't want to have a psychiatric disorder. And some of those psychiatric disorders were general anxiety disorder. And I'll tell you, if I had a penny for everybody that came into my office with anxiety, I'd be a rich girl, all right? So general anxiety disorders, substance abuse, and we all know people that have substance abuse, eating disorders, we all know people that have eating disorders, PTSD, we all know people that suffer from PTSD, and then OCD. And so I don't think I have OCD, but I do like to be in control of my life. I do like to know if I make this decision, I'm going to have this outcome. I do like to know that this is the positive thing to do, and so this, is going to be my outcome. I can't control that. When I set myself up to think that I can control that, then I get into trouble. So we need to tap into our intuition, which has been refined by real world living. So mindset is being aware of what's happening to you, be aware of your situation, how you're feeling, how you're being motivated, being aware of all those things so that that intuition can come up, that you can recognize it, and then you can use it for your advantage. So being logical and being intuitive is not necessarily mutually exclusive. And so real world example for me, I am a lifelong student. I study. Why is that? Because I deal with healthcare. I want to make sure I'm making the right decision, all those kind of things. However, when someone is sitting across from me, just like you are right now, and I will know what we're doing, I will know, what I know, but then I'll get a feeling, this is going to work better than that. And so I've learned throughout the years, because I've been doing this almost 20 years now, I've learned throughout the years that when my gut is leading me to go this way or that way, I need to pay attention to the gut because I am reading something intuitively with the person sitting across from me, and they're going to have a much better outcome if I lean into my intuition. Now, do I discount all of my knowledge? Do I discount everything that I know? No, I do not. But I use both of them together to have the absolute best outcome for the people. So these are some benefits, 10 benefits of thinking less. Now, we're not saying throw away your rational mind. We're not saying that at all. but we're just saying don't overthink. Don't get into hyper rationality. All right, don't do that. Wisdom is one of the benefits. Thinking less allows us to tap down into the deeper knowledge that is far more important than just logic alone. Sitting down and thinking directly about a topic is one way to gain insights. Considering the many variables in our complex world, it may not be the most efficient. Often, when we go with our gut, we'll be able to have a better outcome with our logic. The second benefit is you're going to have more engagement. You're going to be engaging with the people. You're going to be engaging with the situation. You're going to be engaging with your environment instead of shutting all that down and just going by logic alone. So when we think less, we tend to live in the moment, not future tripping. What's going to happen in the future? What's going to happen if I make this decision? What's going to happen if I don't make that decision? And then we get all anxious. We don't want to do that. We want to engage with the situation. We want to engage with the person that we're dealing with. We want to listen to our gut and how we are feeling. Yes, use the wisdom. Yes, use the knowledge. Yes, use the logic. But you also want to look at the situation that you're in because that's going to give you guidance. Deep thinking pulls you out of the flow of everyday life. And so when you're all in your head, you're missing the moment. You're not being present in the moment. And so you've been with people, I've been with people, and you're talking to them and you're pouring your heart out to them and you have a dilemma and you know they're just not there. They're not listening. They're not hearing what you're saying. They may be listening to respond, but they're not listening to hear. So they're not present in the moment. They're not empathetic. They're not hearing your heart. They may be hearing your words, but they're not hearing your heart. And so when we dig down into our gut, when we dig down into our emotions, we're able to connect with that person in the moment. And in the moment, we're able to be what that person needs with our intuition, with our love, with our empathy, all those kind of things. And so it helps us to be more present in the moment than just, like Dragnet, just the facts, ma'am, just the facts. We can't live our life like that. We can, but it's not going to be a fulfilling life. We're not going to have all these benefits. So I want to give you some balance here. So if we are present in the moment, we're going to be able to engage with that person. And sometimes we just need somebody to hear us. Somebody just needs us to hear them. They don't need us to fix their problem. They don't need us to offer solutions. All they need is to be heard. And so we want to do that. We want to be very, very present in the moment. The third thing that not overthinking does is it helps us to stay in a calm place. All right? The more you feel you ought to have figured out the problem and be able to influence the outcome, the more anxious you are going to be and the less calm you're going to be. Now, I know at this particular time of the year, when it's holidays and travel and gift buying and all that kind of thing, there are a lot of things out there that can rob us of our peace. We do not want to get into that. So if we are mindful of that, then we're able to move into this season with peace, with gratitude, being in the moment and not in this stressful, scurry, make sure I have bought all the stuff, make sure everything is perfect, because guess what? We can't make things perfect. So we lose our peace, we lose our calm when we try to control everything, all right? Living intuitively means humbly admitting we do not know everything about everything, and we let go of trying to control our life with our thinking, all right? Now, does that mean we just have a laissez-faire attitude? Not necessarily. I don't believe in that. I believe we need to craft the best life that we can, but I also believe we should not obsess with that. We should do what we can do and then, know that God's going to take care of it, know that the universe is going to take care of it, whatever your belief system is. You can only do so much, and so you need to be able to rest in that and not get all twisted up in that. The fourth thing is your intuition. Thinking less can actually lead to solving problems in a more effective way. Why is that? Because you're not just being analytical, you're also being present in the moment. What does it feel like? What solution feels the best? For many of life's situations, the fastest way to get an answer is just to take the first step in the right direction. The real world, combined with your emotional response to the situation, will often give you exact feedback that you need in order for you to make the best decision. And that is not overthinking it. It's making a decision and moving forward and letting things happen. And so that takes a lot of stress out of the moment because you are moving forward. You're just not paralyzed in fear of what if I make the wrong decision, all right? The fifth thing is inspiration. Without thinking, I am discovering opportunities that I never considered. If you're like me, your overthinking tends to oversimplify the complex reality of life. You might imagine there are only two options, where if you just move in that direction, you might see that, oh, it's not just A or B, but it's A or B or C or D or E or F. There's a multitude of options, and if you just breathe into the situation, allow yourself to feel the situation, you will have more opportunities and more options that you can make a decision with. And so you won't drive yourself crazy by looking at A through Z options. What feels right? What is the logical consequence? Is the world going to burn down if I choose A? No. Is the world going to burn down if I choose B? No. So does it really matter? In some things it does, but in some things, most things, you do your best, you feel your way through, and you move that way. So this is because you have vibrational energy, you have emotional energy, and when you're stuck, you've got closed-mindedness. Now, I'm not talking about you should just accept every idea that somebody tells you. I'm not talking about that at all. But what I'm talking about is when you're in a situation and something new presents itself, instead of saying, oh, well, we've never done it that way before, so I'm not even going to try and do that, we look at the option, we consider the option, how do we feel about that option? What do we know about that option? What does our logic tell us about that option? And then we make that decision in a very peaceful, inspirational way. We can drive ourselves crazy trying to consider every possible trade-off, when the truth is there are far more options and shades to the choice than we've ever considered. The brain cannot weigh out all of this. You have your emotions, you've got your intuition, you've got your vibrational energy, you've got all those kind of things that you can rely on that gives you direction to make a peaceful move forward. The sixth thing is moving forward. It is gaining momentum. One of the best parts of thinking less and replacing that time with pure intuitive action is the confidence you feel from making progress. This feels good to me. This feels like I'm in the right decision. This feels like I'm making the right decision. So I'm encouraged to keep going in that way. Now, when I started learning alternative medicine, which was about 20 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, it was one of those things that nobody thought that I was doing the right thing. I had an educational background. I had a degree. I had a master's degree in education. I loved education, but I felt a pull in this direction. Was it logical? No, not necessarily. Was it illogical? Well, no, it wasn't illogical, but it's like, you're so successful here and you're doing great here. Why do you want to move from here to here? Because my gut told me to. And so as I moved in that direction, opportunities presented themselves that I had never considered before, but it felt right. It felt like it was the right way to go. And so little by little, that momentum took off, and here we are today, where I am able to sit and help people all the time with their health challenges, and that's what I want to do. So there's a saying that says, how do you eat an elephant? And the answer is one bite at a time. And so when you're trying to think of things, don't just think you have to have the whole answer before you can move forward. What is the next right step? What is the next right thing? And as you do that, you're going to get a sense of peace. You're going to get a sense of calmness. You're going to get a sense of, yes, I'm moving in the right direction. And you're going to have that momentum that's going to lead you and guide you moving forward into that space. The seventh thing is ease. When you overthink, when you are a control freak, when you are a perfectionist, you are never at ease. You're always anxious. You're always, am I doing the right thing? Am I going to make everybody happy? Am I going to have the right outcome? All those kind of things. So living with less internal debate is a weight shifted off of the chest. Constantly thinking and overthinking is an exhausting way to live, and nobody has time for that. I don't have time for that. You don't have time for that. Life itself is exhausting enough. When you are constantly overthinking, your brain is never at rest, and you never are at ease because you're always second guessing yourself. You want to make sure that you've done your due diligence. You've looked at the situation logically. Then you need to tap down, what does it feel like? Does this forward motion feel good to me or not? Does this forward motion feel good or not? Does this forward motion, where is your peace in those things? If you don't have peace about it, then that's not the direction that you need to move in. But when you do dig down into that intuition and you find the right pathway, you're going to have a sense of ease, and that is far less exhausting than overthinking all the time. The eighth thing is self-trust. You feel confident that you can figure things out, and you get that, ironically, by deciding to think less. You're living in your emotions, you're living in your intuition, you're living in the moment, you're living with all of the options, and you're not closed-minded. And what that does is it helps you trust your gut. And so that's what when we minister to other people, when we counsel other people, we always ask them, what does your gut say? Now, if they're not doing right, if they're not thinking right, if they're not mature, then they could go off on a harebrained idea. And we're not talking about that either. We're talking about leading and guiding with your rational brain, with your logic, but also with your real world understanding of what are the frequencies telling me? What are my emotions telling me? What is my gut telling me? So without the weight of overthinking, your mind is going to feel more agile. You're going to feel more rested. You're going to make decisions in tune with your values. Now, I will just tell you, for me, I have a lot of values. I have personal values, spiritual values, business values, family values. I've got values, okay? When I make a decision, I always double check. If I move forward in this way, it feels right, I feel good about this, does it match up with my value system? If it doesn't, then it's not the right way for me to go, because my values are my core self. And so I don't want to do anything that's going to go against my core self, and you don't either. And so when we're going through this process, what are our values? And maybe you've never sat down and developed your values or determined your values. We all have them, but you might not have sat down. I value integrity. I value authenticity. I value commitment and loyalty and all those kind of things that you do, right? And so when you're true to yourself, when you know your values, then you're able to move forward with these things without just logic. What we're saying is that you want to look at your logic, but also look at your intuition as well. When you do this, the ninth thing you're going to have is you're going to have more joy. Thinking less leads to having more fun in your life. So just do a quick assessment. Am I living a fun life? If the answer is no, then you probably are overthinking. If the answer is no, then you're probably being too harsh with yourself. If the answer is no, then you're probably overanalyzing everything, and you're not allowing yourself to just be in the moment. So when you think less, you have more joy. You're able to play. You're more aware of how you feel. You're more excited to see how things work out. There's an element of spontaneity that is missing when you're super critical and you're super logical. Now, again, we're not saying throw logic out. We're not saying that. Be logical, but also be intuitive as well. Right side of the brain, left side of the brain. We have two sides, and we have two sides for a reason. We want to be logical, but we also want to do what's right. We want to be logical, but we also want to do what is in our core value. People have asked me to do things, or they've asked me to agree to things, not necessarily wrong, not necessarily sinful, not necessarily any of those kind of things, but it went against my core values. So if something goes against my core values, I'm not going to move forward in that, because I have to be true to myself to be who I'm supposed to be, and you do too. Okay, so we want you to understand that part of that is that joy that comes with that. And then the last thing, the 10th thing, is that you have more confidence. So the less time that you are overwhelmed because of overthinking, then you have more ability to feel confident in your decisions. And so what you want to do is, if you are someone who is a controlling person, if you are someone who walks in fear of making the wrong, I don't say wrong mistakes, that's not the right way to say it, but if you think that you're someone that's going to make the wrong decision and you're paralyzed because you don't know whether to go right or go left, that's not a great way to live. What are your options? How do you feel at the gut level? What does your intuition tell you? What is your real world experience telling you? What is the next right step? You may not be able to see the finished product. You may not be able to see the finished outcome. All I can see is the next right step. If I do this, what will happen? This will happen, or this will happen. Okay, can I live with this? Yes. Can I live with this? Yes. Okay, quit overthinking. Move with whichever thing feels the best. You have another option. I don't know to do this or to do this. If I do this, is the world going to burn down? No. If I do this, is the world going to burn down? Maybe. Okay, well, I'm not going to do that because I don't want the world to burn down. I'm going to do this. Do we know what the outcome is? Not necessarily. We just know what the next right step is. So that's kind of the takeaway that I want you to get from this, is you don't have to know the whole picture. You don't have to know the whole outcome. All you have to know is, what is the next right step? The next right step will lead you to the next right step, which will give you that momentum. And as you keep moving in that direction, then you're going to have more joy, more confidence, more less tiredness, right? And more joy in your life. And that's what we want. So this has kind of been all over the place today, because this is me. I tend to be an overthinker. And as I've moved through my journey, I've been able to let a lot of that go. I've been able to burn down, not burn down, okay? How are we doing here? And so as I've matured in this, I have found that I can make a bad decision, but the world's not going to stop. And you know what? God is good, and I'm smart, and I'm going to be able to adjust in the way to go to the next right step. So do not be overcritical of yourself. Do not overthink. Do not do all those things that make us go crazy, okay? Live in the moment. Be present. Listen to yourself. Listen to your intuition. Listen to the Holy Spirit. Listen to your inner voice, whatever you call it, all right? And you'll be able to go step by step, and you will get to the right place, okay? So it is Christmas time. The decorations are up. People are shopping. The pressure is on, but we don't have to bow to that, okay? We can be who we are, and we can enter into this season of joy with great joy and great peace and all those kind of things. So it is the weekend. I love you. Take good care of yourself. Remember, next right step. You don't have to know everything, and enjoy the season, because it only comes once a year, and it's just a magical, magical time. So I will see you next Friday. Thank you for liking. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for doing all the things that you do. I love you, and I will talk to you next week.